With Alex Van Pelt officially on board as the Patriots Offensive Coordinator, we're going to take a look at some offensive free agent targets that New England could look into signing with all of that cap space. I'm Harrison Graham. Before we dive into that here on Patriots Today, Dolphins Today, another one of our channels here at Chat Sports, has gotten 97 subscribers already in the month of February. I'm not going to tell you how many we've gotten. It's not 97. Let's catch them, let's top them, let's lap them, let's run past them here on Patriots Today by Chat Sports. Subscribe. Can't lose to the South Beachers. Come on, hit that sub button here on the channel. All right, first, I think it's important to talk about Alex Van Pelt's offensive scheme because obviously scheme does dictate what teams like to do in terms of talent acquisition, both in the draft and in free agency. Here's Henry McKenna talking about the scheme. When it comes to X's and O's, it might not be a total schematic overhaul. Van Pelt will likely bring a West Coast system that New England used under Josh McDaniels and to some degree under Bill O'Brien. But Van Pelt can bring some schematic versatility and might bring some of the zone running schemes that are so popular from the Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay coaching trees. New England tried and failed to implement parts of that system when Matt Patricia and Joe Judge were running the offense in 2022. I do love that last part, Rolly. They failed when they brought in their defensive mind and special teams mind to run the offense a couple of years ago, but that's neither here nor there. It makes sense. I mean, Van Pelt's been under Stefanski the last couple of years. That's that wide zone running scheme. So, it all does get back to that Shanahan-style offense. So, you see a lot of offenses run that type of system for a reason. And B, I do think running that type of system and adding players for that type of system makes sense here.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a complete different offense that you saw. I would probably look at a blend of a zone running attack with Josh McDaniels play action under center, a little bit more RPO action, maybe from the shotgun as well. They didn't run it that much with Joe Flacco, but they did run it quite a bit with Deshaun Watson before he got hurt. So I don't think it's going to be this crazy switch up, right? I do think it will be this perfect combination, as McKenna pointed out, between what McDaniels liked to run as under center, some power run, but also with more RPO action. And listen, that's going to depend on who is running this offense from the quarterback position. Yeah. And I think it starts to mention, I got to be honest, I didn't think there was any possibility, Harrison, the Patriots could sign one of the two top free agent quarterbacks. But after Van Pelt, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to say that that is a possibility. Baker Mayfield worked under Van Pelt when he was there for a couple years in Cleveland, and Kirk Cousins runs that system as well. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world where if they wanted to use that third pick on MHJ or trade back and they wanted to go after one of these two guys as either a bridge quarterback or they view Kirk Cousins as someone who could lead this team for 3 to 4 years, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think in these two guys, especially Baker's case, I think if the Bucs want Baker back, he probably will just stay there for comfortability. But Dave Canales isn't there. They just brought in Liam Cohen from Kentucky, who's a former McVay guy as well. So I would think he stays in Tampa. But if not, I'm certainly not closed off to that idea. Kirk Cousins is an interesting one because if you asked me a month ago, I would have said 95% chance Minnesota brings him back. And with good reason. Down the stretch, the Vikings missed out in the playoffs because of the quarterback play. But with how tough the NFC North is going to be and with Cousins coming off that Achilles, I think there's a small chance that they just let him go and that he pursues other options. Atlanta's been mentioned. Maybe New England gets in the mix as well. I do agree that I think he would run Van Pelt's offense pretty nicely. So weirdly enough, I actually think Cousins is a more likely possibility than Mayfield. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. Wanted to get to this note from Sophie Weller. Alex Van Pelt will have a heavy hand in the future franchise quarterback, Brian Rappaport. He's really the perfect Patriots-type coach. In this case, it seems like Gerard Mayo got it right. Do want to add this as well, Rolly. Albert Breer on Boston radio earlier this morning on, I can't remember which station it was, said that Van Pelt, in a lot of ways, was considered the glue in Cleveland with that offense, which kind of makes it suspicious that Stefanski moved on there, considering he wasn't even calling plays. Maybe it was more mutual than we thought. Maybe Van Pelt wanted to pursue play calling somewhere, but that's certainly an interesting situation because you've heard a lot of positive stuff about Van Pelt since getting this Pats job.
Yeah, what I saw and heard is I talked to our Browns Report host over here and asked him why he was let go. And even though Van Pelt wasn't calling the plays, it just felt like Van Pelt didn't have the right system for Deshaun Watson is how he kind of made it seem. So who knows? I did mention a little bit earlier that they like to run a lot of RPOs from the shotgun that I thought is what made Deshaun Watson good at times, even when going back to Houston, is those quick RPOs from the gun, either taking the ball himself, hitting a D-hop slant, or handing it off. But that's what Matthew Peterson, so if you disagree, go find him on Twitter and make him your scapegoat. But he's the one who told me that that's probably the reason why they moved on, is the relationship between him and Watson probably wasn't the greatest.
Yeah, interesting. Would you sign a quarterback or draft one? Which one would you rather go? Type S for sign, D for draft. All that being said, I still think I'd rather draft one, but it's important to consider all options if you are New England. So we'll see where it goes. Let's take a look at a receiver here. T. Higgins, this is going to be a name that circulates a lot. There's already a lot of rumors in Cincinnati. They want to keep him, but it could come down to money. Does he get a franchise tag? I think the tag, at least initially, is still the most likely scenario, but make no mistake, Rolly, if he slips through the cracks and hits free agency, a lot of teams would be interested, and I got to think New England would be at or near the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, T. Higgins is probably Patriots fans' number one guy that they want. And free agency, if he does hit the open market, and I'm right with all of you who feel that same way, because I love T. Higgins, the ability to be that big guy on the outside, allow some other dudes to play inside. He can win the contested catch battle. He could go over the middle. He's not going to be afraid to take some hits. I think T. Higgins, especially for his age, could really be a perfect fit for New England. I'll just group all of these other wide receivers together. We could talk about all of them as a whole. Mike Evans, Michael Pittman Jr., and Calvin Ridley. These are some of the other top guys in free agency at that wide receiver position. And ironically enough, he did deal with some injuries this year, and obviously Joe Burrow wasn't hurt, but T. Higgins did technically have the worst statistical year out of these four guys, but he's also the youngest and also projects to be the only one who could be a wide receiver one for the next 6 to 7 years potentially.
Yeah, I think if you ask me in a vacuum who's the best player at this moment out of this list, I'd still go Mike Evans, but he's going to be on the wrong side of 30. T. Higgins is in his mid-20s, so I do think Higgins likely gets at least a longer deal. We'll see on average. But I will say this, the Houston Chronicle, Rolly, reported that Evans could seek $25 to $30 million per year. Now, I think that makes sense on like a 2-year deal. Like I could see him getting 2 for $55.
And here's the thing, like we talked about cut candidates the other day on the channel. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it. Like if New England just has $95 million to spend and they're like, listen, he's like, well, we really
I'll give
want
Evans
Mike
2 for 55, 2 for 60.
You might think that is a little too much for Mike Evans. Well, let's throw him a bag because we can. So maybe that is a possibility for New England to just overspend for some of these guys in free agency. I mean, that is a real possibility, and it's kind of the best part of having a lot of cap space.
Yeah, and the reason I don't mind it, I should say, with Evans is if it's short term, it's like, okay, even if he's not like 1,200-yard Mike Evans, well, 2 years is 2 years. Like, it's not like it's going to kill you long term.
Plus, if you do go the young quarterback route, Harrison, he'll still be able to give you a solid target that young quarterback can trust. And then if Mike Evans moves on after 2 years, well, hopefully he helped develop that young quarterback so when he does leave, well, he's more comfortable and can do things with any other wide receiver, not needing and depending on that number one guy like Mike Evans could be.
Yeah, pick one of these receivers. Who would you rather have? Type TH for T. Higgins, ME for Mike Evans, MP for Michael Pittman, who's considered a strong franchise tag candidate, or CR for Calvin Ridley, who I think actually might hit the open market, and PFF projects him at $16, $17 million per year. So that's not a bad deal if you can get him, 3 for $55 for CalvinRidley?
I would be kind of in on Calvin.
I would sign up for that. I don't think he's peak Ridley anymore, but I think at worst he's a very high end number 2 at worst. So I think that's a pretty good option as well. Let us know which guy you would rather pick. Do want to include Kendrick Bourne here. Now, this is where I kind of like the Evans option, Rolly. Say even if you overpay on Evans, then you got Kendrick Bourne just running the underneath stuff. Get him on a 1 or 2 year deal for team-friendly type of contract. Maybe you draft a third receiver, and that's your trio. Kendrick Bourne, obviously it's going to be a bit of a new system, but you would think there's comfort level there being in New England. If the price is right, I would certainly like to bring him back.
Yeah, I don't hate that whatsoever. And the way I'm looking at the wide receiver position for New England this year, to me, is they've got Demario Douglas back, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith, Devontae Parker. I honestly think they look to trade one of Juju and Devontae Parker. And if I had to make my guess on what Gerard Mayo and company does this offseason with that group, I think they sign one, whether it be bringing Kendrick Bourne back or one of those other top guys that you saw on screen, maybe a Curtis Samuel type as well. They draft one in the first 3 rounds, whether it be in round 1, round 2, or 3. So in the first 2 days of the NFL draft, you have Douglas as your slot, a guy you sign and you draft on the outside with Juju and Parker as that number 4 type guy. That's how I view this wide receiver group looking next season, with one of Jalen Reagor or Tyquan Thornton being that wide receiver 5. That is my prediction, at least going forward in this draft. I don't know how you feel about that.
And that's a pretty good, like flip of the position, right? I mean, like, if you get to next year and Douglas is your, like, clear-cut 3 or even 4, whereas he ended last year as your top guy, like, you've done a nice job. So I think that makes sense. You've got the cap space to spend. You've got capital. Like, even if you go QB in round 1, you could come back and get an Adonai Mitchell or a Keon Coleman if he falls a little bit. Maybe even a Lad McConkey, who had a great Senior Bowl week in the second round.
Ooh,
he seems like a Patriot.
That's an old school Patriot player right there, and I know jokes will be made of.
He's actually got a lot of juice though.
Slot receiver, but he can play a little outside. White guy. I mean, he actually is a dog.
He's going to run in the 4.4s, I think.
Don't get it twisted. Lad McConkey can play ball.
Yeah, he was named the Senior Bowl players all vote for, like, best player at each position each year, and he was voted the top receiver. So really strong week at the Senior Bowl, so he's someone to keep on your radar for the draft as well. We're obviously talking free agency here. We'll continue to look at some offensive players the Patriots could add under Alex Van Pelt. But first, take advantage of this 2-shirt combo. It's on sale, chatsports.com/Patriots shirt combo. All one word, chatsports.com/Patriots shirt combo. Link is in the comments and in the description. Click and shop today and get yourself some Patriots gear. All right, let's look at some offensive linemen here. Rolly, obviously you've got the internal guy, Onwenu. Mekhi Becton's an interesting one. I thought he played fairly well this year after missing most of the last couple seasons with injuries. Jonah Williams is out there, Jermaine Eluemunor as well. I think all these guys could be starting tackles. I don't think any of them's elite, but they're all starting caliber, which if you can enter the draft with at least one of those tackle spots filled, I think that would be preferable.
And that's what I've just been, like, continuing to kind of hammer home here on Patriots Today is, like, free agency comes before the draft. Obviously, New England has a lot of good draft capital, the 34th pick, the 3rd pick, and an early 3rd-round pick as well, before they make any potential trades. Free agency is going to dictate what they do in the draft very, very much. You see the offensive tackle, it's a very massive position of need. If they only bring back Onwenu potentially, and he's their starting right tackle next year, because you have Cole Strange, you have David Andrews, and you're probably running back City Sauer, Antonio Mafi at right guard next season, and I don't have the biggest issue with that, at least as we currently sit. But you're going to have to fill that left tackle spot. If they don't sign another one of those tackles that we showed on screen, well, I think it becomes pretty evident that they are going to draft an offensive tackle in the first 2 days of the NFL draft that they intend for them to be the starter next season. So that's kind of like the thing here. Free agency is the first domino to fall. I know a lot of Patriots fans are excited about the draft. I am too, but the decisions made by this front office in the first 2 weeks of March is what is going to dictate what they do in April.
Yeah, very well said. And they got to calculate. It's all calculus, right? Like, you got to be like, okay, we want to have these spots filled before the draft, but they also got to fall into the price range you're willing to pay. So it all works together. We'll see how it looks come free agency. What is the Patriots' biggest need on offense? Let us know. I think it's obviously quarterback, but maybe after quarterback, what would you say? Drop a position down in the comments. I tight end sneaky, Rolly. I mean, Gesicki and Henry are both free agents. You mentioned bringing back Henry as an option here. I'm curious to see what Dalton Schultz gets. I mean, he had a great year with C.J. Stroud. You would think the Texans would try to bring him back. They have a lot of cap space as well, but he could be a guy that's, well over $10 million per year, I would think, based on how he played last year. Noah Fant's in there. Maybe you just bring back what you know. Hunter Henry didn't have like a great run here, but he's been pretty productive.
Very good in the red zone.
I would certainly, be open to bringing him back. Like, I think when you're a team like the Patriots who has a lot of needs, you're not going to fill every need at a top level in one offseason. It's just not realistic. So maybe tight end's a position where you bring back a Hunter Henry on a one-year deal and you go draft a guy on, early day 3 of the draft or something. You kind of patchwork that position and, maybe that's a position in 2025 you put more resources into.
Yeah, I mean, the tight end group is kind of funny when you think about it because all 3 of their guys are free agents that they played this year. Henry, Gesicki, Pharaoh Brown. All of them, nothing. You don't have any tight ends. So you're going to have to sign someone, and I probably lean towards they sign someone, whether it be Hunter Henry or Gesicki, bringing them back. They probably draft one in the later rounds of the NFL draft. Noah Fant, the one you saw on screen, I think that's a sneaky guy that if they wanted to maybe bring back or not bring back Hunter Henry or Gesicki and go a little bit cheaper, probably would get the same amount as Gesicki, but Hunter Henry might garner a little bit more interest because of how well he does in the red zone. Noah Fant's a name that really intrigues me that you could probably get for maybe $8-9 million on a 1-year, 2-year deal. Annually at least. I think Noah Fant's someone that just catches my eye real quickly.
Yeah, I've always liked his game. He was good in Denver. He played well in Seattle, so certainly would be a good option on a 1 or a 2-year deal. Hit that subscribe button here on Patriots Today. News, rumors, free agency, draft coverage. We're doing it all. Appreciate everybody who made it to the end of this video. We'll see you guys soon with another episode of Patriots Today.